when they clap before we've even said anything.
You're welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Oh, I love that. I'm Christa Wessel. I'm the early morning host at All Classical Portland, which is a radio station that's a preset on all of your radios, right? 89.9? Good. Is there anybody, I'm just kind of curious, anybody here who isn't aware that there's a classical radio station in town? Good, that's what I'd like to see. Tonight's chat will be videotaped. It is being videotaped and will be posted on our website, in fact, in a couple of hours. Zach is fully aware. He's prepared to behave.
I'll try.
Okay. This is Zach Galatis, who is the Oregon Symphony's Piccolo player. What's funny is that he is not playing piccolo at all tonight, even though there's piccolo parts being scored in the Dvorak and whatnot. You're only playing flute tonight.
That's right, yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, we're sort of in a unique position right now because normally we have 3 people in the flute section, but we have a new principal flute who's joining us next fall, and she's able to be here for a number of weeks this year, but she has a full-time job elsewhere, so we're kind of making do when she can't be here, so that's one down. And our second flutist, Alicia Paulson, had a baby, so she's on maternity leave. She's coming back in about 2 weeks. So that leaves me party of one in the flute section. So I have played every position so far this year, just in various covering roles. So tonight I'm playing principal flute, and we have a great pool of subs who come in and fill out the section when we need extra people or if somebody's sick, and we're really lucky because that's not true everywhere and it's not true in every section, so that's something the flutes are lucky to have. And we have 2 subs with us tonight who are doing a great job, so yeah.
So this is Zach Galatis, tonight's principal flutist / piccolo player. We're going to spend this half an hour talking about Zach and his path to the Oregon Symphony and what it's like to be a flutist and all kinds of things, because I enjoy getting to know these people who make music for us, right? We've got some great program notes in your booklet, so if you really want to dig into Dvorak 6 or the Chopin Piano Concerto, you can do that. But I love these opportunities to really connect with these musicians who make art for us. So can you briefly talk about the differences between playing piccolo and flute, even though it seems obvious, one's bigger, one's smaller, but
yeah. You know, there are those obvious differences. Obviously, physically, you're dealing with an instrument that's much smaller as a piccolo player, so you have a little bit less of a margin of error, if you want to put it that way, because you're dealing with a smaller hole that you're blowing into. The airstream is different, so it's a very sensitive thing, and it's kind of a hot seat, and you know, I'm under a lot of pressure as the piccolo player. Playing flute is different. There's pressure, and I'm under a different kind of pressure playing principal tonight, but it's a different thing. It's mostly a mindset. You know, when I play piccolo, I feel like I'm part of the section. I have to do my own thing, and I play piccolo by myself, but I also have to play with the other flutes, and therefore also with the other woodwinds. So it's kind of like I'm half my leader of my own little section, and I'm also following. As the principal flute, I have a responsibility to the other principal winds, the oboe, the bassoon, and the clarinet, and we lead together sort of as a unit, and then I have to remember, oh, the other flutes aren't following me tonight, you know? So that's kind of the biggest difference is the mentality, I think. You know, once you get past all the physical practicing differences.
I know very little about either instrument, quite frankly. Are the fingerings the same? Is it easy to transfer from one to the other?
Any flute player should be able to pick up a piccolo and play all the right notes. You may not do it particularly well. We have what are called alternate fingerings, so different combinations of the keys. And, you know, a true seasoned piccolo player has all these trade secrets, you know, like, oh, I don't do that like this here. I play a different fingering here, and then they go, oh, awesome. You know, so that's kind of a different, just trick of the trade kind of thing that comes from being, you know, a specialized piccolo player. And we had talked about I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you here, but
go.
For my schooling, I went to Peabody Conservatory for my master's. That's in Baltimore. It's part of Johns Hopkins University. And Peabody has the only piccolo master's program that I'm aware of in existence, like period. So I'm one of a very, very small amount of people who have a master's in piccolo. So people are usually surprised about that.
And you told me that you're pursuing your doctorate too.
Yeah, so I started my doctorate with the reasonable expectation that I'd never win an orchestral job. Because, there's so few and there's so many people out there who want them. And I started my doctorate and I thought, well, at least if I get the doctorate, I can teach at a college or a university. And then during my second year of the DMA, which is Doctor of Musical Arts, I won 2 orchestra jobs, this being the second of those. So I have all the classwork and all the recitals and all that done. I just don't have the dissertation, or we call it a lecture recital, and some qualifying exams and stuff. I just kind of have to tidy that all up if I want to finish it.
And do you want to finish it? Or do you care now that you have a job?
It's easy to kind of say, oh, all right. But I put so much time into it, and it was expensive. And, so yeah, I'd love to finish it. And I intend to. It's just one of those things, gotta just make it happen at some point.
So if you are one of the few people that has a master's in piccolo, you clearly have an affinity for this tiny little instrument. I'm assuming you didn't start on piccolo. Do all piccolo players start on flute and then eventually find their way to this?
I would say 99.99999% of flutists start on flute and then pick up piccolo at some point. Every once in a while you see, oh, this person was really tiny and they just played piccolo instead, but very, very rarely. So yes, I played piccolo. I played flute to start with in 4th grade in just regular elementary school band, and I decided that there were too many flutes and you couldn't hear me. So I convinced my parents to let me get a piccolo, and now you can hear every note I play.
You like to be heard.
Yeah, I guess there's an ego in there somewhere. I'm not really sure.
Well, yeah, it's a tough job. I remember doing a musician interview with Jeffrey Work, who's the principal trumpeter of the Oregon Symphony. And I think you and Jeff are in a lot of the same position. Like, every note you play is heard. It's just that timbre, that range.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's like I have a microphone on me at all times in the orchestra, even though I don't, My job, Jeff, obviously there are many other soloists that play solos throughout the concert, but I think the piccolo player has the distinction of being the one that, if I'm playing a note, you can hear it. And it's me that you can hear, so there's a certain amount of pressure there, yeah.
But that's the draw for you. It's not the terrifying nature of the...
Yeah, no, I kind of get off on the thrill, I guess. It's, it's exciting, there's adrenaline, there's an excitement to it, for sure.
Are you like that in other aspects of your life, too? Like, here I am, listen to me.
Yeah. I'm not shy. I mean, if that's what you're asking.
Just, he's being a little reserved in that response. We were just, before coming out here, he was telling me a great story about a friend of his going to a Barbra Streisand concert, and the way he was telling the story, it was very, like, jazz hands.
A lot of theatricals, right? Yeah.
You're a good storyteller. So, by 4th grade, you started playing the flute. Mm-hmm. Was that just because you wanted to play the flute, or was there some kind of...
Yeah, when I was 4 years old, my mom said, you will play piano, and made me take piano lessons, which I totally wasn't really into. I didn't want to practice. I was like, whatever. But she made me stick with it, and I'm very glad. Of course, that's what she said at the time. You'll be glad later.
Put your finger away.
Totally. So, I played piano for years before I got to 4th grade in elementary school, and we were picking instruments, and my cousin had a flute that she used to play, and I thought, well, I'll play flute. And then I found out, and I think I told you this, I found out that the way my band teacher did it in 4th grade, you had to take aptitude tests for rhythm and pitch and all sorts of things, and you had to score in the highest group to get the flute. And I thought, well, okay, yeah, I don't want to be one of those lower groups. I want to play the flute because it's elite or special in some way. So that sort of helped, I think.
And so, did you take to it right away? Were you good at it right away?
I mean, I remember not being able to make a sound for a really long time. It's not an intuitive sort of way of making a sound with a clarinet or an oboe, you have a reed or a mouthpiece that goes in your mouth and you blow. You know, it might not be pretty, but you're gonna make a sound regardless of what happens, right? A brass instrument, the mouthpiece goes up to your lips and you buzz. It might not be pretty, but you'll make a sound, right? The flute, you can stick the thing on your face for months and not make a sound. And as a 9-year-old, I mean, that's horrifying. You're like, why can't I play Mary Had a Little Lamb? The girl next to me can, and you know, so that can be a little frustrating. But you know, eventually, yeah, I got the hang of it, and you know, I got to be, you know, sort of the best in my school, and I went to all county, and we had like district, you know, bands that you had to apply to be in, and of course I wanted to be in those because
you want to excel, you want to be in the elite group.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely,
Exactly. Yeah. So at what point in your life do you really realize this is your thing? You start taking lessons, you start practicing, you like really hunker down and said this is a goal for yourself.
You know, I like to think that I knew the whole time. Maybe not when I couldn't play Mary Had a Little Lamb, but shortly thereafter where I thought, oh, okay, I really want to do this. And I started taking lessons when I was in middle school. I was probably, you know, 11 or 12. And it was sort of a no-brainer after that.
And so did you have any formative teachers that really changed the way you thought, that changed the way you played, that changed the way your sound?
You know, I had these amazing teachers when I was at grad school in Peabody. I studied with 3 different teachers while I was there. There's 3 different flutists on the faculty, and I got to study with all of them, which was amazing. So my teacher for my master's was the Piccolo player of the Baltimore Symphony, who I think is finishing her 45th or 46th season, which is just incredible. She has had an amazing career. And she did my major studies for my master's, and I like to say she taught me everything I know, you know, all my piccolo tricks. Also during my master's, I ended up taking supplemental lessons with Emily Scala, who's the principal flute of Baltimore, and she changed the way I played the flute, no doubt. She taught me amazing things. Her pedagogy skills are just unbelievable. And then for my doctorate, I got the chance to study with Marina Piccinini, who is she travels the world as a flute soloist. She lives in Vienna, in Austria. There's a Vienna, Virginia, and that's a little confusing. But she lives in the real Vienna, and would travel to Peabody, you know, once a month or every 3 weeks to teach us, you know, you'd have a lesson, and a lesson over the course of 3 or 4 days. And it was like, you know, crash course in how to be this amazing flute player, hopefully, right? And she just premiered a brand new concerto that she commissioned with the Detroit Symphony just this weekend. So she's absolutely amazing. In between, you know, piccolo studies, orchestral studies with the principal flute of the Baltimore Symphony, and Marina being a soloist, I got 3 sort of incredible viewpoints. And so, yeah, they were all just amazing to study with.
And do you yourself teach now?
I do, yeah. I have a private studio of people that come and take lessons from me. And I think my youngest is around 13 or 14, and my oldest is in her 70s. Nice. So, yeah, I have a pretty diverse studio. It's nice.
And that 70-year-old, is she just learning music? Is she a lifelong musician?
I think the way the story goes is that she started flute when she was young and didn't like playing in band in school, and then quit, and then forever regretted that. So then in her retirement, she picked up the flute. She's been playing, I think, about 8 years. And she's just great. She's a retired ballet dancer. And she has more energy.
Ballet or belly?
Ballet.
Ballet.
Like on point, yeah. And she has more energy than I do. I have to take a nap after her lessons. It's like, but she's just great. She's probably my favorite student. I love working with her. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. Are there any flute players in the audience? Oh, I see a couple hands. Good. You mentioned that you abandoned your efforts in the doctorate because you won a couple of jobs. Tell us about that.
After my first year of the doctorate, I went to Aspen for the summer. And when I got back from Aspen in September, we started school again, and I was totally in the throes of full-time classwork, and I was a theory teaching assistant for the theory department. So I was really busy, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll take this audition that comes up, which was for the Virginia Symphony. And I showed up, and I won the job, and I went, oh my God, what do I do now?
It's almost like you train yourself to not win jobs because they're so scarce,
Well, you
right?
have to train yourself to not be devastated after you after you don't win it, because the odds are against you for sure. So anyway, during this second year of my doctorate, I ended up staying in all my classes and doing all my assistantship work, and also playing full-time in the Virginia Symphony, which was 6 hours away. So I ended up doing a 12-hour round-trip drive once or twice a week. And I still don't know how I got through that. I mean, I was a zombie all the time.
And that was for Piccolo.
That was a Piccolo job in Virginia as well, yeah. And then a couple months after I won that job, I took this audition, and I flew here. I was here for about 24 hours, 11 hours of which were the audition.
Wow. Are you
it was a really long day. It started, we had to be here around 8 in the morning, and close to 8 o'clock that night, Carlos said, "Oh, we would like to pick you. Congratulations." And and then I hopped on a plane, took a red eye back to Virginia, and had a rehearsal the next morning.
Oh my God.
And I sat down in my seat, and the second flutist next to me went, "Congratulations." Everybody had already found out. I have no idea how.
I'm imagining the Piccolo community is rather small. The flute community is rather
I think it is, yeah, probably. News travels fast,
And were you only at that time auditioning for Piccolo jobs or flute jobs as well?
I've only taken a couple auditions, 7, I think, total, and they've all been for Piccolo positions.
Interesting.
So it's been sort of my specialized path.
I'm always curious about audition stories because it seems harrowing and nerve-wracking and exhausting, all wrapped. I mean, you're behind a screen and you can't see the people who are judging you. So that long day of coming here and auditioning, where you just...
Before we did 3 rounds that day. It was a semifinal, a final, and a super final. And before the super final started, I just thought to myself, oh, why didn't they eliminate me? I'm exhausted. I just want to go home. But of course, I'm really, really glad they didn't. But in the moment, you're just like, oh, I can't do this again, I have a great story about the beginning of that audition, if you want. So I come out for the semifinal round. I'm the second person to play in the day. So we started playing, got here about 8, we started playing about 9 o'clock. And I come out and I play about 9 Piccolo excerpts. They all went really well, I was really happy. And then the last thing on the list, switch to flute and play my least favorite excerpt in the whole world. I mean, if I never have to play it again, I'll be really, really happy.
Are you going to tell us what it is?
It's the Beethoven Leonore Overture excerpt. Never again. I just don't want to do it again. So I start playing, and there's this run up, and then you play a melody. And as soon as I start playing the melody, all the lights and the schnitz go off. And I thought to myself, oh, God is creating a diversion. Thank God. And I finished the rest of the solo in the dark, which probably earned me some sort of, brownie points. I don't really know. But so I finished playing it, and then I turned around to the audition proctor and I said, that was very distracting. Could I play that again? Because it's always better the second time, no matter what you're doing. And she said, absolutely, of course. And then they had to reboot the lights. It took a while. It was like they had to figure out what happened. I don't really know.
This is during the super final where they were seeing you?
Semi-final. I was behind a screen. I couldn't talk to them. They couldn't talk to me. Well, they can talk to me, but they don't know who I am. Only the proctor behind the screen can talk to me, or I can talk to them. You know what I mean? But anyway, isn't that funny? I mean, it was just like, thank God. And then I had to play that excerpt 2 more times in the last round. It's like, enough is enough with the Beethoven. I can't,
Can't even.
No, I can't. I literally can't even with that. Yeah.
This might be a sensitive question. Do you continue to audition? Are you here for good? Are you looking to move
Yeah,
on?
It's a really hard question to answer. Since I've been here, this is my 4th year. There have been maybe 2 Piccolo positions that have opened up in a matter of 4 years. Neither of those were places I particularly wanted to live, so I kind of let them go. There are some dream jobs out there. I think everybody wants to play in the Chicago Symphony, but unless the piccolo player in Chicago falls off a cliff, that's not going to happen anytime soon. She's young and vibrant and still sounding awesome, so that's not going to happen. Shout out to Jen Gunn. So.
But I would assume it would behoove you to keep that muscle strong, to keep auditioning, just to remember how to do it, so that
Yeah.
when Chicago comes open.
Absolutely. I wouldn't want, just for lack of a better example, the Chicago Symphony audition to be the next one I take, especially after not taking one for years. When, it's always a matter of weighing the pros and cons. If you take an audition, you have to take time off. You have to put time towards it. It's expensive. You have to fly, and so you have to kind of figure out whether it's worth it.
I want to talk a little bit about switching back and forth between flute and piccolo, even in one piece of music. That's always astonishing to me. I guess there are other instruments that do that. I mean, does Kyle Mustaine do that with oboe and English horn sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely, depending on the repertoire, what it calls for. Any woodwind player that's playing one of these auxiliary instruments is going to, experience this at some point. And sometimes you play piccolo for a whole movement, and then you get to play flute for a whole movement. So there's some time to sort of make the transition. But sometimes you have, 3 beats, and you throw the flute down and pick the piccolo up, and you hope that it's not the wrong way. And, there's
Upside
this,
down.
yeah, right. Oh, I'm blowing into the wrong hand. What's going on? But there's actually a spot in the Bartók Concerto for Orchestra where you play this pretty sensitive piccolo solo, and then you have to, maybe in one measure, switch to flute. And it says in like all capitals, "Do not play on piccolo!" Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Because the temptation to just, I'll just do it on piccolo. So you do experience these 2-second changes, and you get used to it. You practice the change, and you practice going from one extreme to the other, and hope that it goes the way you plan.
But as you mentioned at the beginning of our chat, there's almost a different shift of mindset too, because piccolo, everything you play is heard, and flute, maybe not so much.
Right,
so
especially if I'm playing the third flute part, which is what the piccolo often doubles between. Yeah, it is a little bit different. You have to put your following hat on and make sure that you're doing what the rest of the section is doing.
Now, do you play anything else besides piccolo and flute? And piano, probably?
Yeah, I still do play piano. I play a bunch of things rather, amateurly, poorly. I played clarinet and saxophone and oboe throughout high school and college because when you play the books for Broadway show, you're often asked to double between all these instruments. And I really liked playing, in the pit for Broadway shows, so I just started picking up these woodwinds. Not like I'm very good at them, but passable, And I got bored in high school and picked up violin and played violin in the orchestra in high school. And
Wait, violin?
yeah, I mean, again, not particularly.
But that's so interesting because in my limited orchestral experience, there's kind of like this mental divide. There's the strings, and there's the winds.
It's a different experience playing in a section of 12 or 14 when you're used to playing as, like I said before, party of one. It's kind of fun. You get on the train and hope you don't fall off the train, and it's kind of fun playing a string instrument in an orchestra. I liked it.
So you said in college you played violin. I would be thinking in college you'd be studying piccolo.
We had a really large flute studio in college. 25 or more people were studying flute at my college. So if you weren't one of the top couple people, you didn't play an orchestra. We just had bands. And I wasn't really all that big of a band guy. And I really wanted to play an orchestra. And I had played some violin in high school, so I just said, I'll audition for the symphony on violin. And then they put me in it.
So part of your musical studies in college was playing violin in the school orchestra.
Yeah, and the funny part about that is that some of my first experience with playing orchestral repertoire was on violin. Like the first time I ever played Dvorak's 8th Symphony, I was playing violin. I wasn't playing flute. Of course, I've played it on flute very many times since then. But it's kind of a funny perspective to come from.
Yeah. I imagine it's a nice opportunity to put the shoe one on the other foot.
Yeah. And like I said, it's such a different mentality between being, your own section of one and then being a member of a large section. It's just different.
And speaking of bridging, I think I heard that you are not only a musician, of course, on stage, but you are on one of the negotiating committees or executive committees or something. I'm
on every committee, it feels like. I'm a member of the orchestra committee, which we just sort of help to run, uphold the rules of the contract and stuff like that. If people have questions, they come to us. On that committee, I'm on the artistic advisory committee, where we sit down and think about guest artists and stuff like that. And I'm also on our current contract negotiations committee. And yeah, I feel like I have no life. I'm always at a meeting.
Well, why do you involve yourself so heavily in those things?
I enjoy being involved. I'd rather be a part of it than watch from the sidelines, I guess. So, but I tell everyone I'm banking up all my committee years now for the next 10 years and just no committees.
You're just gonna stay in your PJs all day long.
Yeah, that's the best kind of day.
I know, right?
Get out of my pajamas. Yeah, totally.
Besides music, it sounds like you're really involved with the orchestra, besides playing in these meetings and everything. What do you do for fun?
I always feel like this is the dreaded question on a date I never want to answer because I feel like I'm really boring. Like, what do you do for fun? Oh, I'm not fun. I don't know what to tell you. I feel like when I have free time, I like to spend it at home reading or watching TV, or I know it's like, does anyone want to admit that? But, it's a reality.
I've witnessed one of your outside talents firsthand.
I know where this is going.
He is an amazing karaoke singer. It's astonishing.
Karaoke's really fun, yeah. I'm trying to think if what year it was. I guess it was last year or the year before I actually sang with the symphony.
That's right. What concert was that?
It was our first New Year's Eve concert. I sang a duet with China Forbes from Pink Martini. I did the Happy Days Are Here Again, Come On, Get Happy duet.
The Barbara
the Barbara Judy duet.
Oh my gosh.
And then they did another concert with us where they did, their whole Pink Martini set, and I did it again with them a couple times then. So, it's a fun thing. Nobody pays me to sing, but
you love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Oh, wow! I can't imagine how thrilling that was to be. Well, you said at the beginning of this chat that you like to be heard. That's part of being a piccolo player. So now standing front and
yeah, what better way to sing in front of the orchestra with a microphone than to be heard, right?
Exactly.
I was nervous of a whole different. It was a horse of a different color. I was like, oh my God, I'm like 2 feet away from these people. But it was a lot of fun. It was super, super fun.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you agreed to be heard in this forum. Thank you for doing this with me, Zach. This is Zach Galatis,
everybody.
Piccolo player who's not playing piccolo tonight. But I appreciate your time. And this chat will, once again, to remind you, be archived at the All Classical Portland website. If you or a flute player would like to go to the website, allclassical.org, and watch it this evening. Thank you. Good luck tonight.